Hey guys, welcome back to TMI.
Hey everyone, podcast number 3 out here,
I'm Michelle,
and I'm Tanya.
and today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, which is feminine energy.
That's right. So, a lot to say about that. Michelle has been really wanting to talk about this, and we are going to share our thoughts, our ideas, some similarities we have, some differences. So, here we go.
All right. So, what I want to start talking about is that right now, I think that we're in modern day and age, everything is a trend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And part of what's a trend right now is being in your most feminine energy and for men to be in their masculine energy and all these energies. And um yeah, I think it's really important to sometimes understand what it means to a certain person, right? Like what does feminine energy mean to you versus what it means to me?
Right.
And vice versa about masculine energy and all other things in the world. But right now, since it's a topic of trend, I think it's like really interesting to get into. So, Tanya, tell me,
It is.
what does feminine energy mean to you?
Okay. So, just to quickly add on and agree, I've been seeing it everywhere, like to be in your feminine energy.
Mhm.
Men are not allowing us to be in our feminine energy, and like they have to be in their masculine. And my husband hears it 24/7. He's like, okay, you got this one from Instagram, didn't you? But I agree with a lot of the posts and the things that I do see, in the sense of, in order to be in your feminine energy, and I'm talking specifically about being with the opposite sex in a relationship, the man needs to be primarily in his masculine. Therefore, you as a woman can take on the feminine energy. So, what does that mean to me? I would say to be more, not necessarily girly, but to be like, okay, how can I say that I'm in my feminine energy to be less angry and be able to receive more and be less assertive and be more accepting and receptive to certain things, be a little bit more submissive.
Okay.
So I
So,
feel to be in your feminine energy, we should, as women, be more submissive. Do I agree with that? Not always, because I myself consider myself more in my masculine energy. If you know me as a person, which you do, and I think we're a little bit similar in that sense. So I just want to hear your take on it. That's like in a nutshell what I think.
it's so funny because my mentality about feminine energy versus masculine energy is so different. I don't view feminine energy as being more submissive. I don't view it as a man and a woman in a relationship and one needs to be masculine, one needs to be feminine. I actually don't view it like that at all. I view it as everyone has what they want. So there are men that are so into masculine energy females. It turns them on. They are attracted to that strong, willed, powered, independent person who I say person because it could be a woman, it can be a girl, it can be, even, coworkers or people you see on the street. You see someone who is strong and powerful and it inspires you. So
Hmm.
I don't think it really has anything to do with female versus male or being in a relationship like, oh, the man has this. And I definitely believe that, of course, in a relationship, there are roles to take. Um, and I do think that it varies. I totally think it varies. So, for example, um, there can be like a man who likes to be taken care of by a woman. He wants to be nurtured by her and he wants her to, take control over certain aspects and vice versa. Some women don't want to be taken care of by men. Some women want to be super, super, super independent. It's definitely part of, once again, trend. And what's on trend is always changing.
Hmm.
And so when it comes to feminine energy, what does feminine energy mean to me? I think feminine energy means to me is to really just know who you are and in what direction you want to bring out your femininity, right? So I know I like kind of reworded that, but in a way, what I mean is you set that standard of femininity. For you, being feminine can be dressing in skirts and dresses and putting on makeup and putting like a little flower in your hair and extra
More
jewelry.
exterior.
Some other women, more femininity means I want to do, kind of like a mental health work for myself. Or some women are like, femininity, being in your feminine energy means being a feminist and standing up for women. Other women can be like, well, being a feminine, like being in my feminine energy can mean just allowing people to help me, allowing somebody who's in their masculine to take care of me, or you know what I mean. So I think that it varies. It definitely varies, and to me particularly, it's one of those things that it varies from situation to situation.
I mean, as I'm listening to you, I feel like you kind of are going towards what I'm saying, maybe just wording it differently because you said two really important things.
Mm-hmm.
You said like to be nurturing, which in my the way I define it is feminine energy, like as a female, we are nurturing and we're made this way. So that's for me like one of the biggest ball points. And you said something else about being able to receive. So to me, when I think of being in my feminine energy, I think to be able to nurture and to be able to receive, like you said, to ask for help. So whenever we segue to, let's say, about a man, because I believe that men and women have both the feminine energy and the masculine energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it's situational and it depends how you want to behave in a certain way and what you allow yourself to, like how you allow yourself to present yourself in that situation. For example, if I'm in a workforce, and I don't know if you agree with this, and let me know, I want to be more in my masculine energy. I want to be a little bit more assertive. I want to show that I know what I'm doing instead of the person in the back. Nothing wrong with a person like this, like the person in the back burner who kind of just sits there and watches or observes. I want to be like, and maybe also it's my sign, like I'm a Leo. Like I kind of want to be there front and center and I want to show that I know what I'm doing. I don't want either, of course, if it's my boss, if it's a different story, but a masculine, a male figure to show that he knows more than me. I would feel like, no, I know just as much as you do, and I want to put that forth, you know? So maybe it is a competition thing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm good at what I do, I want to make that known. So that I would say it would be more towards masculine energy versus if I'm with, let's say, my girlfriends and we're out, there's nothing for me to, there's not, for me, it's not competition. I'm out and I feel like I'm in my most feminine energy with my girls. You know what I mean?
I actually do. I definitely know what you mean. And I love that you brought up the workforce, because my job has taught me so much about what feminine energy. So this, I think, really really ties into what I was telling you about regarding it varying. It's always
Mm-hmm.
relative, right, to your situation, right? So I'm a female who's very independent, right? I live alone and I am in my full masculine when I have like a leak or something breaks or my closet door falls off its hinges. I become super in my masculine. I start fixing shit. I have a whole drill kit, a whole like tool kit. I built all my furniture by myself. I do things all on my own. And I think that because I'm in a very independent role, because I live independently of anyone else,
Mm-hmm.
I live by myself, it forces me to be in my masculine,
Exactly.
right? Now, so then flip it over. When I'm in a relationship, I melt. I'm no longer in my masculine. Yattаю, which means in Russian, it's like I melt, So clearly, I think it's very different. So for me, like being in a relationship, of course it depends on the man you're in a relationship with too. Because I've
True.
been in relationships with men who were like super, super masculine energy. And then I've been into relationships who aren't like that, with men who aren't like that, who are more in their, sensitive side. And that's okay too. So I've dated, those both two complete ends of the spectrum. You definitely know who they are and what happened in each relationship. And that has formed me and allowed me to learn which kind of vibe I want to be in. Do I want to be more in my feminine or do I want to be more in my masculine? And I definitely think that at this age, I realize like where I want to be and stuff like that when it comes to relationships. And that's definitely in my most feminine energy, which means accepting of help, allowing a man to be a man. I don't want to think when I'm on a date. I don't want to have to make a decision. If I have a relationship, you got it, babe. Do what you got to do. You need me. I'm here. I'll give you my advice. We can make decisions that are important together. But for the most part, on day to day things, take care of it. I'm okay with that, you know? So that's also relative, right? Because that's a very different situation than when I'm, independently doing things on my own. Then when you mentioned work. So when it comes to work, it's so funny because I used to be exactly like what you're saying. I used to be, I'm going to show and I'm going
Mhm.
to show up and I'm going to be strong and I'm going to be boom, boom, boom. And I realized through time, and my current job actually taught me this. And that was that I actually got hired in a company with full of men. There were no women in managerial roles, just me. So all business meetings, every single week, every single month, all the meetings, all the things that we would attend, everything was always at least 6 to 7 men and me. And it's not just 6 to 7 men, it was 6 to 7 men who were much older than me.
More
So,
experience also.
yeah. And so the situation at hand has become, hey, I'm a female. I need to prove to these men that I can do this and that I'm just as good as they are and I'm all this stuff. Because of course, what do they look at you as? A little girl like, oh, she's cute. She can have an opinion. I was in my full masculine at work. I would come to work and I was like, boom, boom, boom. And I would make decisions and I would try to make changes because that's what they hired me for. They hired me to make changes, to improve things, you know?
Yeah.
And I realized that you got to read the room. And sometimes
Absolutely.
sometimes it doesn't work, especially like you have to read the room. And there was all my other jobs were full of women, full of women who love that. They love for me to like show that I'm strong and that I'm independent and like that. And they were older than me. So it didn't really have to do with age. It was more so like it was different. But with men, I realized that in that super machista, like super manly setting with all of those men, I learned how to be in my feminine. I allowed these men to be in their masculine energy, and I no longer would just jump the gun. I would allow for, like, they really taught me how to calmly make strong changes, how to softly make strong changes. Do you get what I'm saying? So, does that mean that you're not doing it and you're not being that strong leader? No, you are, but you're doing it in a much softer way. So I think it's really varies in what position you are in your life. The what I think the main point of my spiel right now is that it matters where you want to be in that moment in time.
That's a good way to look at it. I mean, I did not experience what you experienced in the sense
Mhm.
where I worked with, at the time, who was my supervisor at a hospital, which I can think like the most closely related. And I really look up to this man, you know?
Remember, yeah.
So working with him, I felt, I can't explain. I guess I couldn't let go and be soft and be subtle because it's not who I am, also. Maybe you were working with multiple men, so maybe it was a little bit different. I don't know. It was just him and I. So I wanted him to know that I was just as good. I wasn't trying to compete with him. It was, this guy has what, 25 years experience versus me, like a fresh new grad at the time. But he just saw so much in me that I was in my masculine, but I was never aggressive or assertive. I was just, this is what I know. And you see that I know these things and I'm going to produce my best at work. So I can say that it was both masculine and feminine in a sense because I never overstepped. You know, you got to, like you said, you got to read the room. Yes, you also have to know who is ahead of you because he was my supervisor. So, in that sense, yes. But just to also add on to what you were saying, I feel that you said it also depends who you're with when you're talking about relationships, right? So, just to add on for those who agree or may not agree, I believe that a man can also be in his feminine energy just as much as a woman can be in her
If
masculine
not,
energy.
yeah, exactly.
That's how I feel like it balances. But you're saying that you're independent and you live alone. So maybe you are both at certain times, but you're not really answering to someone in order to respond or react in whatever energy that is. But there
Exactly.
are times in my relationship where I take on more masculine energy versus feminine. And there are times where I know when to be more soft and subtle depending on my husband's response. Like you were saying when you were fixing things, right? You're like, you're the point person for yourself. I am more in my masculine and I'm more of an assertive person, more of a little bit of a control freak. So maybe I tend to take on those roles. But when it comes to housing things, fixing things, I love doing it. I know how to do it, but I sit back. I don't take out the drill. I don't fix what cracked. It's just something that my husband, he just takes care of it. I literally told you the other week, he took out the drill like 3 times. And I was like, wow, that was nice. I'm glad to know that we as women when and as a man, but men are they kind of have a niche for this where they do these fixings and this is something that they're used to.
Not
We
all
should
men.
know how to do these.
Yeah.
Not all they should, but we also should know how to take care of ourselves. And like I can say, like for both of us, that we can fix things if needed. But then I believe that I want to be in my feminine energy and let the man take care of those things, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like to know that I can behave certain ways depending on my situation, my friend group, my relationships, my work group. It really depends where you are. So just to add, because I want to really give a definition for our listeners, and then you tell me if you disagree with the definition. I was doing some research and before this, and I saw that they said that to be in your feminine energy is where, which I didn't agree with all of it, and I don't want to like give the wrong information, but one of them was to let go of like control, to not be in control. And when I read that, I was like, wow, does that mean that I can't be in my full feminine energy because I'm a control freak? Like,
That's a good
I
point
mean, I see
in
you want
a
to say
way.
something, so I'm gonna stop talking. You tell me.
No, no, it's just it's a good point to make. Um, but again, you have to know what you want to be in control of. What's like
That's the key.
for me, it's always you need to know yourself more than anything else. Figure out what you want to be in control of. If for example, if it's really important to me that when I'm in the car with my boyfriend, I want to listen to what I want to listen to in the car. If it's important to me, then it's going to be a big deal. It's not important to me. You get what I'm saying? So for me, that control, and this is just an example of a control in a masculine feminine relationship,
Hmm.
it's I don't care. I used to care. I used to go in the car. I'm telling you, this is like 20-year-old Michelle. I would hop in the car and I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to play my music, blah, 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 blah. And then now I'm just like, I'm relaxed. Like, you want to play your music, play your music. You want to play mine, I'll play mine. Like, it doesn't matter. You'll learn eventually what's important to you. Right now, I know what's important to me. I pick and choose my battles and I pick and choose what I want to be in control of. And I also do that based on what I know is going to benefit me at the end of the day. If I'm happy, my partner will be happy. Point blank,
That's a good way
period.
to look at it.
It's not happy wife, happy life. It's happy partner, happy life. That's just how I see it. And that has a lot to do with if your partner wants you to be masculine or he wants you to be feminine, he or she. Like you have to really choose and select your partner very carefully to know that you know what you want, they know what they want, and you're looking for each other and there's a
Right.
balance in that. So yes, I do understand what the point is, but again, I'm always going to bring it back to you need to know what you want because I don't like definitions of like, hey, defining this is masculine and this is feminine, because I could be masculine in some sources. Like, ask anyone that I work with, they'll probably tell you this chick is in her masculine energy 24/7, and I'm telling you, no, I become more feminine energy there. No, because I'm literally people's boss. I have a bunch of employees and I clearly am hiring, firing, taking care of them, I'm training them, I'm scheduling them, I'm in charge of their payroll. Like it's a responsibility. So you have to be in control of certain things. You have to make sure that by the way, when you're in a managerial role, you have your boss, the owners of the business, are relying on you. You have a responsibility to make sure that you're keeping their business under control. So there are, again, it's different aspects and different avenues, you know. But like there was something that you said, and it was like about the supervisor and stuff like that. It's very different. I see it as like, if it's your supervisor, you want to make sure you respect them, but also follow their lead because they are your leader.
Hmm.
You get what I mean? And so I just wanted to throw that in there. And then when I'm my employees leaders, I want to make sure that we're all following on a right, like on the path to go up. I think that that also
Yeah.
has a lot to do with it. So if your leader wants you to be more masculine, and you'll see it, like you have to be strict with them. You have to be tough. You need to keep them on their toes, you know. And then if not, they're just like, okay, you know, there's always like good cop, bad cop. You could be good cop, which is more in the feminine energy, like make people feel good about themselves, ask them if they need any help and stuff like that. So I think in work, home life, personal life, relationships, romantic life, whatever, all of these things, I think they all vary. And I know it sounds repetitive, but I hope I'm making my point like clear.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm actually thinking like if I'm me being the oldest sibling
Mm-hmm.
and also
Mm-hmm.
being a wife and mom, I feel like takes such like I can be completely labeled in more of my masculine energy in that sense because of all the roles that you have to take. Like you were saying, you're the point person. You know, I was the point person taking care of my three younger siblings. I'm the point person of my own two younger, like my two children. I'm the point person for the pickups, for the drop offs, for what's happening here, for what's like all the scheduling. It's exactly what you were saying as a job. And this is just home life, you know? So in that sense, I feel like I put on the masculine energy hat. And then when I'm in my feminine, I would say is when I'm doing more of the gentle parenting
Mm-hmm.
because I'm speaking softly, I'm speaking sweet, I'm explaining things. I'm not as assertive, I'm not as aggressive. So definitely pick and choose your battles, like you're saying. People are defining it differently also.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's a little bit overused of like, oh, being the feminine. And then when I'm seeing it, this is just based on what I'm seeing. I'm not necessarily agreeing with this, is to be that submissive woman or that submissive girl. And whenever we talk about this, I don't like that word. Maybe because
I just told, yeah, I totally told you in the beginning. I'm like, I don't agree with
yeah,
the
I
word
just don't even
submissive.
like, but I know, I understand why the two and two are coinciding. But that word to me is just, it's such a label of like, to kind of sit back and be a woman. And to me, that's like, you
Well,
have something to say. I see your face.
I
Sorry.
don't think there's anything wrong with being submissive at all, as long as you want to be submissive. So I, for example, 100%, I will submit to a man that's worth submitting to. If I know,
Define. What does that mean?
if I know that if I submit, like submissiveness is really known as a common term for when there's like a tiff, this is the submissive one. You know, the one that calms down, the one that gives in, right?
So not the fireball.
No. But again, I think it matters. It's all relative, right? So in this case, like if I know that if I do calm down, if I submit and I allow, you know, that person to take on the role of to be in his full masculine energy, if I allow that, I know if I allow that, I'm only going to allow that if I trust that he knows what he's doing, or she, you know? If I don't trust that that person is going to make sure that we're okay, I would never let them be in their masculine energy. Never. It has, for me personally, has a lot to do with trust. Example, I grew up with a very masculine energy mom. My mom is a firecracker. She's a powerhouse. You know, she was always very strong, very independent, very smart, she was always a leader. She was like, people looked up to her, people would call her, and she would help people all the time. That was just who I grew up watching and seeing my whole life. And she's a female. And guarantee you, it's not just because she's my mom. Because I've met a lot of people who have moms that are more on the softer side and they don't trust their moms to do things. Me, I trust my mom with everything because I trust that she will keep everyone, not just me as her daughter, everyone safe because she's able to take control and make sure she's making the right decisions for herself and those around her. You get what I mean? So, similarly to with men, I
Literally thinking about Ayal as we're talking about this.
as I'm
Because
saying,
I feel like he sees me in my masculine where I do take care of a lot of certain responsibilities and he kind of sits back and I take that negatively. But what you're saying makes sense because he probably trusts me so much
100%,
and he's like,
100%.
she got it.
Exactly.
So that, yeah, that's like a moment.
This is a good point. So why am I saying this? If you remember, I was dating some guy in college. Okay. He was definitely more on the sensitive side, softer, amazing guy. I, at the time, I innately felt that I had to be more in my masculine and more in control. Well, I couldn't ever really be in my feminine with him, nor did I even allow him the chance to be in his masculine because I never trusted that he would be in his full masculine. You know
No,
what
that
I'm
makes a
saying?
lot of sense. Not that I don't
So,
trust my husband, but I know
hmm
in certain aspects when it comes to specifically parenting that I really believe that I do everything correctly, and you know that I tell you this. So I have a hard time letting go to
hmm
allow him to take certain responsibilities, to allow him to for me to step back and be like, you know what? Maybe he can do this. Because my mindset, which this is something I need to work on, is, but I do it correctly. But there is no correct way. I just assume it's correct because it's what works for me. Something else might work for him. For example, let's add some TMI while we're at this, okay?
period.
Before we started recording here. We usually eat dinner together, wash the dishes, like we do the whole cooking, cleaning, like together, basically the cleanup. He knew I had to record, so he said, "Go, I'll take care of everything." And I was like, "Okay." Like, even though I know he'll load the dishes differently, I know he'll put things away the way that I don't like. But one, I had to come on here. So I was like, okay, there's no time to bicker. Second, I was like, he's going to do it. Just let it be. Then he tells me, I'm going to do it after I watch the game. He's watching a basketball game. And I looked at him and I said, can you do it now? And I literally thought about you because he goes, does it matter? I'm going to get it done. And in the back of my head, I'm like, but it does matter. I want it done now. But then the other side of me is like, why does it matter?
But what is that, Tanya? That's relinquishing control,
I'm,
which
this is
ties into femininity.
exactly, exactly. And I'm like, I have to let go at this very moment. But I wasn't thinking let go and not be controlling. I was thinking I gotta be somewhere. So for me, it was good to have an end goal and
hmm
then not cause a further issue that it shouldn't have been. You know what I mean? So now I'm sitting here, relaxed, doing our thing, and I know that I'll come back and everything will be okay. It doesn't matter when it's done. So it is letting go of control.
Yeah, and I think it has a lot to do with it's not only just let going of control. It's also like, again, like I said before, priorities. Pick and choose. For example,
Pick the poison.
if it's more important to me that my dishes are loaded in the dishwasher the correct way, if that's more important to me, then I'm gonna tell him, don't worry about it. I'll do it when I'm done.
Right.
But it's not. So, for example, if it's not important to me, I'd be like, babe, you got it? Thank you.
You're the best.
Bye.
Thanks.
Love y'all. See you later. And then you go do your thing. You come back. It's done. It might not be done the way you want it, but do I care how the dishes are loaded? No, because they're still going to be in the dishwasher and they're still going to get clean. I'm
It's
OCD.
exactly.
So, yes, it like gives me anxiety to not have things like exactly the way they should be, but it's not as important. It's not as important. You have to have your priorities. What is more important? Like, it's
Exactly. I knew getting on this podcast was something we needed to do. So I was like, I'm not gonna make it a thing. In the back of my it was like a 2 second like in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, whatever, it's not gonna be done now, it'll be done in half an hour. It'll still be done. It's a very small example, but just wanted to add that in there that priorities, like you said, and also learning to let go and allowing yourself to be in that feminine.
Yeah. And I think that being a f- being in your feminine energy can mean anything to anyone. It really has like an endless amount of definitions. Um, So many
Exactly.
things in this world that, require for you to be in your masculine, like fight or flight. You have to defend
It's a good
yourself,
example.
fight or flight. You need to just think quick, think on your feet. Problem solving was in the research that you did. Remember, you sent it to me.
Yeah,
Masculine energy is problem solving. And these are all things that tie in together. So when you always have to think about like what possibilities there are so many possibilities. So I think that a beautiful balance is good anywhere, especially in relationships.
you gotta work on that. That doesn't always come. And I feel that also it depends on, I can't believe we didn't even touch on this, personality, like your current personality traits and who you are at the core, whether
Hmm.
that's the person you've been, whether this is the new person you're becoming. If you're
Hmm.
on, like we were talking about the last podcast, your self-actualization journey, figuring out who you are, what is important to you in order to make these necessary changes to better yourself, of course, not if you don't need to, but in that sense where I know the certain things that I have to work on in order to be more feminine, because this is something that's
Exactly.
important to me. I know that I don't want to be as aggressive, as assertive in certain aspects of my life because for example, my partner won't respond the way that I want him to respond. And it's all about, and I love this thing that you always tell me, by the way, if I'm, correct me if I'm saying it wrong, it's not about how you react, it's about how you respond.
Reacting versus responding is a big, 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 big part of being in your feminine versus your masculine. So reacting, it sometimes can be impulsive, right? But responding, you have to realize that when you are talking to someone or you're in a conflict with somebody and you're having a conversation and you react versus respond, you are reacting based on emotion, based on
Exactly.
triggers and stimulus. You're
It's
not
a reaction.
you're not responding to the bigger picture at hand, the one-on-one conversation, or
Hmm.
the you versus the problem, not you versus the other person. So it has a lot to do with the whole picture. And I do think it's very important to react, like to respond versus reacting.
Absolutely.
And I think it
I'm
also will,
thinking
it depends on how they're going to respond to you. And I always tell you this. We are the ones who guide our lives. So other people's reactions we can't control.
we can control our own.
We can only control our own. So even if someone were to have reacted to me and it would have been a fire and it would have been whatever, or disrespectful even, if anyone reacts to me in a certain way, it's my responsibility to respond, not react back. And I think that's where I learned also how to be in my feminine energy. That's a big part of me being in my feminine, is to respond, not react. And it's hard. It's
Of
not
course,
easy. It took me
these are conscious
years.
efforts.
It took me years to learn this. Do you remember when I dated the other guy who was completely opposite in his full masculine, full masculine energy? I couldn't even like say a word because he was so controlling. But what does that mean? That means, you learn. You go from one end of the spectrum to the other in order to find the balance. And I think that has a lot to do with yourself. You look at yourself in the masculine role and in the feminine role, and you have to find the balance. I mean, that's my opinion on versus some people just
Oh,
want
that
to be fully masculine or fully feminine. And
I
all
feel
the
like
power
they
to
can't,
you.
even if they want that, they can't be. I really believe that it's situational. I believe that you are going to behave differently with different people in your life. Maybe people define the feminine and the masculine very differently. I'm sure a lot of people might say oh, if I'm a woman, then I should be in my feminine. If I'm a man, I should be in my masculine. But I think it's healthy to be in both in certain aspects
Mm-hmm.
for yourself to get to know your inner self more and to see how you can form better relationships. Because if you're with somebody and it's not a romantic relationship, if you're with a friend, a romantic relationship, a coworker, whoever, and if you're both in the same energy, that can also be problematic. Because if one, you have to balance each other out, whenever, especially when you're dealing with a situation. If you're the day-to-day conversation, work, whatever it is, you need to know, and that this takes a lot of conscious effort. Like you were saying, the same thing with reaction and versus responding. You need to kind of sit back with yourself, and this is like probably instantaneous once you're good at it. You're like, okay, what am I gonna say right now that's not gonna cause an issue or that's gonna lessen the problem? Because I like what you said. It's not you versus the person. It's you tackling the problem. And how are we going to fix that?
Mm-hmm. Even if the other person wants it to be you versus you versus them, it's you have to remember it's you versus the problem. And I remember one time I was fighting with somebody, and I stopped because it was reactive. Me, him. We're reacting, and all of a sudden I stopped and I took a breath and I was like, and I realized I'm like, this is us fighting each other and not the problem. And I said it to myself in my head. And he was like, "What's wrong with you? Like, hello, And I literally looked at him and I said, "We're getting nowhere. Um, we're fighting each other versus fighting the problem. You're probably angry. I'm angry. Like, we're both angry, and we're not going to solve the problem in anger." And guess what happened after I said that? We both
You
stopped being
instant.
angry.
I was
We
going to say
both
you lit out the fire.
we completely stopped being angry, both of us. We both looked at each other with compassion. We calmed down, and we're like, "Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you are angry. I'm angry too. It's okay." And then boom, solution to the problem. So it really has to do with response. And it's hard sometimes. Sometimes you are going to react. It's normal. We're only human.
I'm just going to say, yeah. But that takes a lot of emotional maturity as well. And I feel like that in itself, very good topic, by the way. And it's a ladder that you're climbing through your
Mhm.
life, through your journey. Not everybody gets there, but if you prioritize that, you're just a better person at the end of the day. And we, I believe, are just trying to fit in the best version of ourselves. And everyone else around us, they're just characters in our lives, obviously with different forms of importance, and we need to know how to respond and not react. I think this was really good to talk about, touch upon. I feel like we went a little bit everywhere, which is great. And I would love to hear our viewers and listeners' thoughts on this because it can get, I mean, listen, everyone thinks differently. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And whenever you guys are up to this part of the video, let us know. Are you more in your feminine energy and your masculine? Do you think you're a mix of both? Do you wish to gear towards more one side? Please let us know. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this one. Michelle, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
giving us your
T.
thoughts.
Thanks, T, guys. Just to wrap up, I just want to say that whether you're in your feminine or in your masculine, whatever you're going to be in, whatever you want to call it, just be yourself. That's all. Be you and be proud of who
Be
you are.
true to you. Yep.
Look at us, motivational and shit.
Thank you guys so much. We'll see you back next week for some more TMI.
TMI.
Bye.
Bye.